Welcome to another episode of Murder Talk Radio. I am producer Parker Evans here with my lovely wife, host
Victoria Evans.
Today we are talking about the murder of Colleen Slemmer.
Colleen Slemmer was a 19-year-old girl from Florida. She lived at home in Orange Park with her mother, her stepfather, and her baby sister. In September of 1994, Colleen decided that she wanted to go to a Job Corps center. Her family couldn't afford to send her to college or specialty training, so that's what she wanted to do. Now, their family lived in Orange Park, Florida, and the closest Job Corps center that offered like 6-month training courses was in Jacksonville, so it wasn't that far away. However, Colleen really wanted training for computers, so the nearest Job Corps center that taught computer training was in Knoxville, Tennessee. And that is where she came across the 3 people who would end her life.
That would be Krista Gale Pike, who was 18 at the time of the murder, to Daryl D. Shipp, who was 18, and Shadola R. Peterson, who was 19. To Daryl was Pike's boyfriend, and all of them went to the Job Corps program for vocational training at the Job Corps Center in Knoxville, Tennessee, which closed shortly after the killing.
Krista was from North Carolina, and Daryl and Shadola were both from West Virginia.
A psychiatrist who testified at the trial named Dr. Engum described Pike as extremely bright. He said that Pike had an IQ of 111 and that testing showed no signs of brain damage and that she was not insane. Dr. Engum concluded that she did suffer from a very severe borderline personality disorder. And I guess that disorder fed into a pathological jealousy that she felt about Colleen Slemmer, who she thought was trying to steal her boyfriend. Friends of Colleen dispute that, and they say that was not the case. It was all in Krista Pike's mind.
Krista had a troubled and difficult life as a child. She dropped out of high school, which is how she ended up joining the Job Corps Center.
Pike and Daryl met in the Job Corps program, and they started dating not long after that. I guess they developed an interest in the occult and devil worship together.
Daryl had a copy of the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey in his room at the Job Corps Center, and he and Krista shared an interest in all things dark arts and satanic, and were very interested in the symbolism, like the number 666 and pentagrams, Colleen's experience was incredibly different. She didn't make friends easily. Her mom said that within the first few weeks of her being there that she got a phone call from Colleen, who was crying, and she said, "It's so depressing here. I hate it. The dormitory walls are painted black and the ceilings are purple."
It's a weird color for a dorm.
It really is. It's it's a little eerie, especially when you consider that there's apparently like some kids interested in satanic rituals. It's just a little bizarre, right? It's described as bleak. And it actually, the Knoxville Job Corps campus is described as not having a college-style look to it at all. And in fact, it was converted from an old motel into this like complex. Another issue wasn't just the weird color scheme of the dorms, but Colleen's mom said that in that phone call, she also mentioned something else. She mentioned that there are 3 students who keep stalking her. The quote is They come in my room, take things, and threaten me. One girl has even come into my room with knives. She thinks I'm after her boyfriend, but I'm not. So May Martinez, who is Colleen's mother, said that she had a really bad feeling the day that Colleen left to the Job Corps, and that she didn't even want her to go because she didn't think it was, or she didn't hear that it was very good, but that her daughter was very determined to go. And she said that when she heard this, she got that bad feeling she had again. So, mother's intuition.
On January 12th, 1995, Pike, Ship, Peterson, and Colleen Slemmer all signed out of the dormitory and walked to the woods together. Slemmer had been told that the others wanted to make peace, so they were going to smoke some marijuana together in the woods. And then when they got to their, I guess, predetermined location, Slemmer was immediately attacked by Pike and Tadero Ship, while Shadola Peterson acted as a lookout. During the trial, a police officer named Harold James Underwood Jr., who had worked the crime scene, testified that Krista Pike came to the scene with several other females while police were there, and spoke with Underwood and asked him why the area had been marked off, asked him who the victim was, and whether or not the police had any suspects. None of the other girls who were with her spoke. The officer said they were there for about 15 minutes, and none of the other girls spoke. He also said that Pike appeared amused and giggled and moved around a lot. You noticed that she was wearing a necklace in the shape of a pentagram. And after learning that the victim had a pentagram carved onto her chest, he told his superior officers at the scene what he had heard and seen from Krista Pike, who was soon arrested.
It's weird to, like, that's your response in front of law enforcement. Like, are you really... It just shows how, like, psychotic she is, that she's, like, sitting there giggling. She's not even trying to pretend like she didn't do anything.
She kept a piece of Colleen Slemmer's skull and,
right.
like, showed it off at school. So, yeah, very psychotic. I mean, the piece of skull is part, if I remember correctly, and we'll learn that here in a minute, but I'm pretty sure that the piece of skull is part of how she got caught, because she was showing kids at school that she had it, and I believe they reported it.
Yeah, and then that was within 36 hours of the arrest. All three of them were arrested within 36 hours, and part of that was definitely due to Krista Pike blabbing about it and pretty much bragging about it. Soon after Krista was arrested, she confessed to the torture and murder of Colleen Slemmer, but she insisted to police that they weren't trying to kill Colleen, they were just trying to scare her, which is insane considering that in court testimony, Colleen, it came out that Colleen was taunted, beaten, and slashed. And there are photos, it's like slashes all over her body.
Yeah, it's gruesome.
It really is. Like, it's hard to say you're just trying to taunt someone and then you look at those photos. Like, that does not come across as taunting. They're deep gashes.
Yeah.
Like, some of them could be more on the surface, but those are some serious wounds. Like a bear, like, clawed you, you know what I mean?
So Pike was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder because of the involvement of her two friends in the killing. And she, you mentioned this already, but she confessed basically right away. As soon as police brought her in, that was it. She rolled over immediately. She described two investigators enticing Colleen Slemmer out into the woods with false promise of marijuana, walking from the Job Corps Center to the park called Tyson Park. And then when they reached the secluded area of the park, Pike described turning suddenly on Colleen Slemmer, stabbing and slashing at her. And she said that she threw a rock that struck Colleen Slemmer in the head. And then Slemmer tried to run, at which point Pike made a long cut in her back. She told Detective York that she decided she couldn't let Slemmer live because she'd be cut from the Job Corps program when the Job Corps found out about the assault on Slemmer. So for whatever reason, from there she decided that murder would not get her kicked out of the Job Corps program the way that just assaulting someone might.
Yeah, so at that point, she decided to take a large chunk of broken asphalt and smash that over Colleen Slimmer's head.
In a taped confession that the police played in court, Krista Gale Pike said to the police in her interrogation, quote, "She wouldn't shut up. She kept talking and talking. She'd start talking again, and I would say, 'Shut up.' I didn't want to hear her talking." She said that she asked, "Colleen, do you know who's doing this to you?" And Pike told the investigator that she only moaned in response. She denied carving the pentagram, and she also denied keeping the piece of Slemmer's skull that she was showing off at school. Prosecutors called two former Job Corps students to testify on the stand, who said that Pike not only spoke to them about killing Slemmer, but she told them that she kept a piece of her skull as a souvenir. And detectives, when they arrested Krista Pike, found the piece of skull that she said she didn't have in her jacket pocket. Kim Iloilo. That is an interesting name. Iloilo. Iloilo. Kim something of Shelby, North Carolina, remembered breakfast with Pike the morning after the murder. She testified, she said, "I asked her what she had done with the piece of skull, and she said she had it in her pocket. And yes, I'm eating breakfast with it," she said. And the psychiatrist, Dr. Angum, testified that she's not so dysfunctional that she needs to be institutionalized, but that she has a collection of problems dealing with interpersonal relationships in terms of her behavioral self-control and in achieving goals as well. During questioning, Dr. Angum shared his opinion that she had not acted with premeditation, but in a manner consistent with his diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. She just lost control during what she said was an attempt to scare Colleen Slemmer. When he was cross-examined, he said there was no question that Pike had killed Slemmer, agreed that Pike had deliberately enticed Slemmer to the park, had carved a pentagram into her skin, had bashed her head against the concrete, and smashed her head open with chunk of asphalt. Didn't take the jury very long to convict Krista Pike. Just a couple hours, and she was found guilty on both counts and sentenced to death by electrocution, with 25 years in prison added for the conspiracy charge.
The video of her sentencing is something else. She starts bawling. She's crying and she's like, "No." And it made me laugh. Because I'm like, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Daryl got a life sentence with the possibility of parole plus 25 years. Peterson received probation for pleading guilty to being an accessory after the fact, and also for turning state's evidence against Pike and Shipp. Slemmer's mother wrote wrote a letter that the News Sentinel excerpted after the verdict. And her mother wrote, "We are outraged and extremely angry with the fact that 1 year after her death, we find out from other sources that Colleen Slemmer was buried without her head, the piece of skin from her chest that had the pentagram carved, and her genitals. It seems that the coroner and district attorney's office feel that families do not have to be informed of the fact that the state intends to use the victim's body parts as evidence. We had been under the impression for the past year that we buried our daughter as an entire human being. We're also angry at the fact that the state allowed co-defendant Shadola Peterson to walk with just time served and probation for her participation in the crime. This was allowed even though her name is splattered all over the statement co-defendant Daryl Shipp gave to Investigator York of the Knoxville Police Department. The reason given to us was that Shipp's statement was insufficient evidence and could not be used against her."
Shadola R. Peterson maintains a LinkedIn account where, as of December 28th, 2022, she states that she has a decade of experience as a professional stylist. She lists her specialties as chemical services, skincare, hair texturizing, fashion, hair coloring, team building, motivational speaking, and lifestyle consulting.
She describes her occupation as being an entrepreneur / visionary.
When all of this stuff happened, she was described in the media as being the luckiest girl in Tennessee because she just got probation.
I had a really macabre moment seeing her LinkedIn account with team building listed as one of her skills.
Also, what's with the motivational speaking? What is it with people involved in murders who become motivational speakers?
I don't know. Narcissism, maybe?
Probably.
After the guilty verdict, Pike launched, canceled, and then again launched an appeal of her conviction in the Tennessee court system. In June 2001, and then again in June 2002, Pike asked the court to drop her appeal, seeking execution by electrocution. Criminal court judge Mary Beth Leibowitz granted that request, and an execution date was set for August 19th, 2002. Pike changed her mind again, and on July 8th, 2002, defense lawyers filed a motion to allow the appeal process to begin anew. That motion was denied. On August 2nd, 2002, a state appeals court ruled the proceedings would be continued and the execution was not carried out.
That's such a borderline personality disorder thing. The back and forth, the can't make up your mind, blah, blah, blah. Also, I have to just comment on her hair. I know, listeners, you can't see this, but look it up on your phones right now while you're listening because...
They can if they go to...
Holy shit.
If they go to the murder of Colleen Slemmer.
Yep.
In Murder Pop Magazine at www.murderpm.com. And this story is free, by the way. This is not paywalled, so anybody can go and see this. It's our gift to celebrate our 1 year anniversary. This is one of the articles that's open up for everybody.
Yay, happy anniversary to Murder Pop.
But yeah, so if they go on there, they'll be able to see it.
And there are crime scene photos.
There are crime scene photos as well. In 2008, December 2008, Krista Pike requested a new trial again, and she was turned down and returned to death row. That denial exhausted Krista Pike's appeals in the Tennessee court system.
While Krista Pike was in prison, particularly August 24th, 2001, she attacked a fellow inmate named Patricia Jones and nearly killed her, which led to another conviction for Krista for attempted murder in the first degree.
Yeah, tried to choke Patricia Jones with a shoestring and nearly choked her to death.
This incident also involved another inmate, Natasha Cornett, who allegedly helped Krista attack Patricia Jones.
Natasha Cornett was responsible for a crime called the Lillelid murders, which there's also an article about in Murder Pop Magazine at www.murderpm.com. If you look up the Lillelid murders, Lillelid, that is Natasha Cornett's crime.
When Krista was asked about what happened, according to the court documents, she was asked about what happened, like how the fight started. She said, "Nobody really started it. Patricia was running her damn mouth to Natasha, and she is constantly doing it. You know, I hate that bitch."
That's a good reason to strangle someone to death with a shoestring.
When later asked about what happened, Krista said that nobody really started a fight, but then she goes on to explain Patricia starting the fight. She said that Patricia was running her damn mouth to Natasha and is constantly doing it. You know, I hate that bitch. She said at that point that Patricia hit Natasha, and that's when Krista decided to grab a shoestring and wrap it around Patricia's throat. There was an intervention, and Krista apparently said after the fact that if she had 30 more seconds, she would have killed the bitch. Also, when later asked about what she had intended for the victim, Krista said, "I don't want to say that I intended to kill her, but I would say that I didn't care if she died. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it if she did."
You know, interestingly, Krista Pike was convicted of attempted first-degree murder for that assault. That was in 2004, August 2004. She was convicted of that. But Natasha Cornett, who was responsible for the Lillelid murders, the Tennessee Department of Corrections was unable to put together evidence to prove that she even helped Pike attack Jones, let alone that she may have been responsible for it in some way.
Yeah, it sounds like Patricia just hit Natasha, and then Krista decided to jump in. I read in some of the files that Krista claims Patricia used to call her a psychopath and a psycho, and saying that, "Oh, they're gonna fry you," and I can't say for sure, but it sounds to me like Krista just didn't like Patricia and saw an opportunity to attack her.
And then in 2012, Krista Pike tried to escape prison.
Oh, this is a great story. So in March 2012, Krista decided to make an escape plan with a corrections officer named Justin Heflin and a guy named Donald Kohut from New Jersey. So it's never been determined how the whole thing officially began, but Donald was a personal trainer in his early 30s, and he started writing letters and corresponding with Krista Pike. So big red flag right there. So this began around 2011. So this began around the beginning of 2011 is when he started writing letters to her. So by July of 2012, Donald from Flemington, New Jersey, he had been making the 900-mile drive to Nashville, Tennessee, once or twice a month to visit Krista in person, which is insane.
That's a long drive.
That's a lot. Like, what is the male version of hybristophilia? So he's making this drive once or twice a month to visit Krista, and eventually Donald and Krista concocted an escape plan, and this plan involved enlisting the help of Justin Heflin, the corrections officers. So,
He agreed to participate in return for some bribes.
yeah.
The Tennessee Department of Corrections has not provided details about the plan, so we don't necessarily know what the bribes were, but the unsealed indictment laid out a scenario where a prison key would be traced and then a duplicate key would be created. But the attempt was thwarted by the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the New Jersey State Police very early on in the planning. It was not very far along when officials uncovered the plan. Kohut was arrested and charged with bribery and conspiracy to commit escape in 2012. Heflin was arrested and charged with bribery, official misconduct, and conspiracy to commit escape. And Pike was not charged, as investigators could not prove if she was actually a participant in the conspiracy or if she was just aware that they were going to try and break her out of prison. And because they weren't able to prove that she had the intent, they were unable to bring charges against her. Her New Jersey boyfriend, Kohut, was sentenced to 7 years in prison for his participation in the escape plan. The corrections officer, Heflin, cooperated with authorities after he was arrested and, surprise, served no prison time. But he was terminated from his job with the Tennessee Department of Corrections. I guess they didn't want a guy who would accept bribes to break prisoners out.
Shocker.
Protecting prisoners.
He's lucky. I'm sure the last thing a corrections officer would want would to be put in prison. Two years later, in May 2014, Krista's lawyers entered an appeal in the federal court system.
So she had exhausted her appeals in the state system, so her lawyers decided to, like a Hail Mary, and file a federal lawsuit to try and forestall the execution.
Yeah, they were trying to commute her death sentence to life imprisonment on the grounds of ineffective assistance of counsel, and that Krista Pike suffered from mental illness, and that capital punishment as administered in Tennessee is unconstitutional. So those are the grounds, pretty common.
And U.S. District Judge Harry Mattis Jr. Rejected all of those grounds, and the commutation was denied. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit unanimously upheld Judge Mattis's ruling. So that didn't work out for her.
Nope.
Then in August of 2020, the Tennessee Attorney General requested a Tennessee Supreme Court set an execution date for Pike. In 2021, Pike's attorneys filed a motion to oppose the execution date and request a certificate of commutation. If Pike is executed, she will be the first woman executed by Tennessee in about 200 years.
That's crazy to think about.
Historic day.
Colleen's mother, Mae Martinez, told WBIR that she still hasn't gotten peace back and won't until Krista Pike, now 47, is put to death. She said, Honestly, it breaks my heart every single day because I keep reliving it and reliving it. I want this to happen before I die. Otherwise, nobody will see justice.
She told WBIR that both Pike and Ship have been giving interviews about Colleen Slemmer's murder while they're in jail. And she said they both get fame from it, and I just want Krista down so I can end it. So, what do you think?
Well, I think it's fucking insane that someone could get that jealous over someone they, like, just met, ostensibly. Like, okay, Colleen gets there. She leaves in September to go to Tennessee, right? And this happens in January. So, like, 4 months later. It's just such. It's so insane. And Krista was, like, just adamant about the fact that this girl is flirting with her boyfriend and trying to take her boyfriend away. Like, that's really, like, the far end of borderline personality disorder. That's like the Amber Heard level and beyond.
It's weird too because she wasn't from Knoxville. She was about done with the program. So she was, I don't know how long, but very close to heading back to Florida to stay far, far away from the Satanists and any of their love interests.
Yeah, I also think that it's crazy to think that if she just went to the one in Jacksonville, she wouldn't have even left Florida.
I know.
This likely would have never happened unless they're... Well, yeah, likely wouldn't have happened. Just a sad story about some fucked up kids.
Absolutely. All right, well, that about wraps it up for Murder Talk Radio.
Thank you so much for listening.
It's been fun, and we will see you next time.